church in Buckinghamshire, the little village called Crestwood. And it would be safe to say that when I looked at the Porsches in the car park, I thought this probably wasn't going to be my audience. And when I looked around the audience and saw that there were approximately 3 people under the age of 50, I knew even better it wasn't going to be my audience. But hey, I only got booed once. So I'm expecting this probably, I don't think I'm being presumptuous to say I expect this to be rather more friendly. I also this morning was at the launch of Another Europe is Possible at the Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church. That was also a pretty friendly audience. So, pretty good balance. But I think this is enormously exciting times for the Green Party. We saw the Green surge last year, membership more than trebled. And I've just come back from 3 days up in Scotland, where their numbers are something like, their VC is something like a 7 times increase in membership. Some parts of the country we've seen even more growth. What we saw, of course, was we got 1.1 million votes in the general election, which a lot of people still don't know. That was more votes than we've got in every previous general election previously added together. And one of the things, of course, you probably know that we stood 93% of seats we stood in, 535 candidates. And actually it was only the September before the May election that I stood up at Green Party conference and set a challenge and said, we can stand in 75% of seats. And lots of people then said, oh, that's way too ambitious, we're never going to manage that. And we got to 93%, 535 candidates. And one of the things that I think was really amazing about that really does show how much you can give good people their head, trust them and just leave them to get on with it, is the fact that a lot of our candidates in that election had been members of the Green Party for a few months. They were surges. And they'd been selected by people who'd been members of the Green Party for a month when they voted. And yet we got through that whole election campaign without a single scandal. And in the age of Twitter, I think that's actually really quite amazing. And it really does show that you can trust people to just get on with it. We were talking before in the press conference before around the manifesto launch about the whole issue of devolution. And the Green Party really believes in local parties, local decision making, local people making their own choices. And that's the whole structure and function of the Green Party. One of the things during the election campaign and other times, I'm always being asked, are you going to get your party there to do this or that? And trying to explain to journalists that I have no power to tell them to do anything at all is something journalists have a lot of trouble getting their head around. But I think this really is exciting times, not just for the council elections here, and I think I've been talking to some independent sources who are feeling really think we've got a really great shot in Market Ward, that we can get great results around the city of Cambridge. But I think it's also, of course, we've got the referendum coming up. And for anyone with good eyesight, this is a Green for a Better Europe badge. We're campaigning very strongly to remain in the EU. And that's something that the party collectively decided, in line with our intensely democratic structure. At autumn conference, we had a vote whether we would have a strong Remain campaign. The conference was 95% in favour of that campaign. So we've got this campaign, and what we're doing is campaigning on the positive side to say we believe that we flourish best when we work together jointly on the issues that we face. We need to work together cooperatively, as we saw the world coming together in Paris last year, working cooperatively towards the climate deal. Now, there mightn't have been everything we liked in that, it mightn't have been perfect, but it really is worth remembering that we saw every world leader sign up to saying we're going to try and keep the increase in temperatures below 1.5 degrees. Every world leader signed up to it. There's an acknowledgement that when we think about carbon emissions, we think about climate change, we have to act globally. And when we're thinking about the European Union, one of the things that the other side, I've heard them saying quite often, is they're saying we should leave the EU because then we'll get back our fish. Which in my mind always conjured up an image of a fish with a passport tucked under its head, and it's swimming around in circles because it can't drop a passport. Things like our wildlife, wild animals, nature, air pollution, water pollution, they don't respect national boundaries. And of course, one of the other reasons why we're campaigning to remain in the EU is we celebrate free movement of people. It's something that enriches the possibility of all of our lives, enriches our lives through the continental Europeans who come here, through the opportunities we might have to go and spend some time, spend our life, if we like, in continental Europe. So, at the moment, understandably, everyone's focused on the campaign for the City Council, and I would urge you to do everything you can for that. But do also make sure whenever you get the chance that you're talking to people about this referendum, because this is a really important decision that's going to have impacts for decades. And one of the key things is that we know that young people are massively more in favour of remaining in the EU than are older people. But young people are much less likely to be on the electoral roll and much less likely to vote. So one of the things that you can do now, and I would say do immediately, is talk to people you know, particularly young people, people you think might have moved recently, mightn't be on the electoral roll, and say to them, make sure you have your say in the EU referendum. And a little practical point, if you do that before April 18, which is when you have to be enrolled to vote in the City Council elections, those kind of people are quite likely to vote Green as well. So we can do that for good reasons and get some extra benefit for ourselves as well. Because we really are in a time of political change. We've seen, you can call it neo-Thatcherism, neoliberalism, call it what you like. It's dominated our politics for the past 35 years or so, ever since the rise of Thatcher, the rise of Ronald Reagan in the US. And it's clearly bankrupt, it's clearly failed, it's run out of steam. And so now is the time that we can put forward what I think is going to be, has to be, the next political philosophy to dominate our politics for the next few decades. I'm Green Party, I think, long term, but I'm only worried about a few decades. Someone else can worry about it after that. And that is, I think, Green political philosophy has two key criteria. One, we have to live within our environmental limits. And that's not politics, it's physics. We're butting up right against the limits of our planet now. It's not just climate change. One of the things we're starting to really realise is how we're turning our oceans into a plastic soup. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation came up with a survey that said by 2050, if we keep going at the current rate, the weight of plastics in the oceans will be greater than the weight of fish. I've been doing a lot of work on microbeads, which is just a real little practical campaign. I went through a stage of, I got given lots of primary schools to talk to. So I get the primary school assembly, pupils aged 4 to 11. You have them for 10 minutes, explain politics to them. I probably got better with practice, but one of the things that I found was I was trying to explain to them, I'm the leader of the Green Party, and that means, I was in the leader debates last year, so I was there with David Cameron, the person you might have heard of. And so one of the about 7-year-olds put their hand up and said, "Does that mean you're a conservative?" So I thought, I've got to work on this explanation. But one of them asked me, what can I do for the planet? And this is a really nice practical example if you get asked by a 7-year-old, what can you do for the planet, is microbeads. So these little plastic, tiny microscopic pieces of plastic which go in lots of facial scrubs, body scrubs, even toothpastes. Sorry, I know we're about to eat, it's an unpleasant thought, but, and there's no need for them to be there. They were only put in there a few years ago, and they just go straight through sewage systems, straight out into the ocean, so straight into plastic soup. Now there's an app called Beat the Microbead that you can download on your smartphone. So I'm afraid there's now lots of parents, probably mostly mothers, who are cursing me as they go around the supermarket with a 7-year-old going, "Have you scanned it to see if it's got microbeads?" So we have to deal with those environmental issues which extend much beyond climate change. But we also, of course, have to deal with the state of our economy and society. And we have still, we're talking about, we have to deal with these too big to fail banks. It's 2016, all those years after the financial crash, and we still haven't dealt with our economic system, the focus on the financial banks. And we've just seen the figures coming out from manufacturing that it's not looking good. And our whole economic recovery, as called by George Osborne, is based on consumer debt. And of course, as we were hearing before, on rising house prices. So an economic recovery built on consumer debt and rising house prices. I'm sure nothing could possibly go wrong with that. So we've got these crises. We need to build a different kind of society. And the fact is that this is not an either or. It's not a case of, oh, we've got to deal with the economy, we've got to deal with the fact there's so many people going to food banks, there's so many people struggling to keep a roof over their head, and then when we've done that, we can deal with the environment. The fact is that the solutions all fit together. When we think about a really obvious one, the fact that we have fuel poverty. We have the second worst rate of fuel poverty in Western Europe. We're not as bad as Lithuania. And it's not because our energy is particularly expensive, it's because we have a really lousy quality of housing stock. We have people who are basically in unheatable homes or have bills they can't possibly afford. Now, if we were to invest, as your manifesto calls for here in Cambridge, invest in home insulation, energy efficiency, starting with the poorest areas, the poorest people, then what we can do is we create jobs, we lift people out of fuel poverty, and we cut our carbon emissions. And when we think about, as your manifesto also calls for, really investing in walking and cycling and public transport, those are things that tackle air pollution, they tackle congestion for the people who actually need to be on the streets. We know we have a huge problem with obesity, diabetes. If people are active, then we tackle that as well. So all of these solutions all fit together to tackle all of these problems. And then finally, since I'm in a university city, I do have to mention the whole thing about education. And yes, it is worth repeating again and again that we believe in zero university tuition fees. But we also believe in a different kind of education system. And I think it's really worth focusing on the fact that we are doing such damage to our young people now. If there's one single figure that sums up how much we're going wrong, it's the fact that the rate of depression among the under 16s has doubled in the past decade. The rate of depression among under 16s. And part of that is worrying about doing the right course, worrying about student debt, worrying about getting a job you can build a life on. But also, a lot of it is the pressure of exams. The fact that our schools are being turned into exam factories, but pupils are shoved through exam after exam after exam. So we've got all these crises, and people are really looking around for answers. One of the things that I think is most telling is if you look at the surveys, which they've been doing for a long time now, asking people, do you think your children and grandchildren will have a better life than you've had? And they're increasingly negative. People really get in their gut, if not yet necessarily entirely in their conscious thought, that things are going wrong and they've got to change radically. So what they need is hope. And that's what the Green Party offers, a vision of something different. I was in the Rochester and Strood by-election, the bit before the general election, and it was the first time I really recognised how this resonated with people, because usually what happens in a by-election, a parliamentary by-election where there's lots of attention, is the locals learn very quickly. As soon as they see someone wearing a rosette, local turns on heel and sprints in other direction as fast as possible, because there will usually be someone with a camera behind the person with the rosette. But in Rochdale, we actually had people coming up to us, even when we had the television cameras there, on our stall, and they were saying, we're glad you're here, we're going to vote for you, you are the anti-UKIP. And I think in a way that sums it up very well, because what's not going to continue with our politics, our economics, our society, is the status quo. Things are not going to continue as they are. And I think if you look at what's happening in America, this is illustrated perhaps even more extremely. You have Trump and you have Bernie Sanders. We're offering the hope of a different kind of society, one that works for the common good with environmental limits, one that, referring to the news at the moment, cracks down on multinational companies and individuals not paying their taxes, putting their money into tax havens. And it's interesting how the world's changed, because in 2010, when I was a general election candidate, I'd say to journalists, oh, we want multinational companies to pay their taxes. And journalists would go, oh, that's a bit radical, isn't it? The British people never vote for that. Things are changing, things are moving. I believe Britain needs the Green Party. Cambridge needs the Green Party. And because, of course, you all need your next course, I'm going to stop right now. I'll be around for an hour or so, so anyone who's got any particular questions they'd like to ask me, please feel free to come up and have a chat. At least, hopefully not when I've got a mouthful, but other than that. You have a great opportunity here in Cambridge to really, you set the foundations last year to really grow on those foundations. It's a great chance, a great opportunity, and it is really worth looking back for a second and remembering that Oscar got elected by 7 votes. And indeed, there's a parallel with this in Islington in North London. We have Caroline Russell, who was also elected by 7 votes. And she is the opposition on Islington Council. It's 47 Labour and her. So we've got lots of elections now where every vote counts. So every door that you can manage to knock on, every work colleague, union colleagues, fellow student, whoever you can talk to, that could be one of those 7 vital votes. So to make this happen, we need all of you, everyone engaged, doing what you can. Social media, doesn't take much to retweet the party every day or every couple of days. Get the word out there. I'm convinced that you can do it. So good luck and have fun, because politics is supposed to be fun. Thank you.